Hello everyone, welcome to the Grey Mind. This video is going to be a part of a series of a video where I'm going to teach you how to start with Java on Leetcode. The purpose of this video is to get you started with Java on Leetcode or HackerRank or any other online coding platforms. This is not a Java tutorial, so I will not be explaining like each and every concept of Java in depth. But this would be enough to get you started on Leetcode. Okay. This is again for someone who has some prior experience in programming with C or C++ or any other language. And again, this is just to get you started on Leetcode. So that whatever I'm going to say in this video is going to be like very focused on around Leetcode or HackerRank. Okay, so let's get started. So the agenda for today is like we'll go over some basic theory of Java, and then we'll see how to solve some Leetcode easy questions with Java. So let's start. Um, so so as you can see, this is the basic function definition in Java for a Leetcode problem. So I have just opened any problem, it's number of good pairs, and as you can see, we have a class definition, and then there is a method number of num identical pairs, and it is something called as public int, and then the method name, and then it has some arguments. So this is very similar to C++. Like if you have prior experience with C++, this is very similar. If I switch this to C++, you can see like everything is almost same. The class definition is same. It's just the syntax is different. Like public moved here, and then the method declaration is again same. Only thing is you might have noticed is like the argument is vector, right? But in case of Java, it was integer array, right? So there are a few differences here. Okay, so let's take this example and try to understand like what each of those term exactly mean. Like what does public mean, what does int mean, and what we can do with it. Okay, so so as you can see, this was our lead code definition, right? So let's see what this means actually, like what each term exactly means. So let me remove first this. Okay, so what does this term here means? Class. So this is just a term to define class, to create a class. So it just says like create a class and then solution. You don't have to like touch this part, right? So whatever code that you have to write here, like inside this method. So let's try to understand what each of this means. Like what is public? So if you are aware with C++, Java is also same. Like methods would be like public, or they would be private, or they would be like the Java by default. It's called default in Java. So this is they are like access modifiers, right? We don't have to worry about them too much if we are working with Leetcode. Why? Because you would be given with a function definition, right? So this again here is integer data type, and we'll go over the data types in detail. And this is the return type of function. Method or function. Okay, and this part here, this is the argument list of the method. So same as C++, a method can have like other arguments as well, like which would be separated by comma, which we'll see in some example we'll encounter. Okay, so this is our method signature. Okay, so this is our method signature. So what we would do, we would say like public or private. We don't have like public or private. So for Leetcode, we'll stick with public or private, or you can choose any, like you can go with public also. That is also fine. Okay, Return type would depend on like what our method wants to return. So for in this case, like the solution wanted an integer value, so it's just like C++. It's nothing different here. Then this is the method name, and then this is the argument list. So it's pretty similar to what you have seen for C++, right? A class in Java is very similar to a class in C++ or a struct in C, if you can say. Okay, so for Leetcode and HackerRank, you would be given the class definition and the method definition, and you just have to write the logic. To write the logic, uh, you need to understand like what data types you want. So that is our next topic. Okay, so let's see. So these are our primitive data types that are present in Java: byte, short, int, long, float, double, and char. Uh, Again, it's very similar to C++ data type. The only difference could be in the memory, the space that each data type can hold. Okay, so for example, char holds 2 bytes, but you don't have to worry about it if you are working with only lead code problems. So I would say like you don't have to think about it at this time. Float and double are same as C++, like double will have double the precision of the float, and they are for like mostly for the decimal, the floating point numbers. Okay, Um byte is 1 byte, short is 2 bytes, I think, int is 4, and then long is 8 bytes. So one important thing that I would like to point out is like so whenever you're coding on lead code, you would have to decide what would be the type of the variable that you're creating. Okay, so the difference could be in like the amount of memory that you need, or like the range of values that you want to store in that data type. Okay, so one important thing here is that this is just an approximation, and it's good to remember that a long or start with int, and int would have the range between -10 to the power 9 to 10 to the power 9, and you can easily calculate that by saying that the int has 4 bytes, so you can easily calculate this range from here. Okay. Uh, Long is again a -10 to power 18 to 10 to the power 18 bytes. So, oh, sorry, these are not bytes. These are the range of the values, right? And you can again easily calculate. If you want to understand like the more basics about the storage, I would recommend going through my pointer videos or the bit playlist, bitwise playlist. Okay. There is one new data type here, which is boolean. Okay. This has two values, true and false. Okay, so this is new. C++ doesn't have Boolean data type. Okay, C++ or C works with like if a value is positive, then it is considered true, right? But in Java, that's not the case. So we work with true and false values. So these are like our new type of data. Basically, if you are new to Java, this is a new type of data type, Boolean, which contains true or false. And we will see in an example how these are used. Okay. So only important point if in terms of lead code programming, uh, if I talk about data types, is that think about like what is the range of value that you are going to store in a particular variable, and assign and use that particular data type only. So for example, sometimes you will encounter that uh, int is sufficient and you are taking long, or in majority of the cases boolean would could be sufficient, but you are taking int because you are transitioning from C++. So what happens is like your program becomes slow because boolean would be much faster. It just has like true false values, right? It would take much less space. So if I'm creating a m cross and let's say two-dimensional array, a boolean array would uh, take much less space than an integer array. Okay, so that is another difference. That is an important thing to keep in mind when coding on lead code. Moving on to methods, this is a typical method declaration or definition in Java. So as I have explained previously, this is again access modifier, public, and then the return type. This is the return type. Okay, and this is the method name, and this is the argument. Okay, and then your logic would go here in the method body here. Okay, so there's nothing new. This is very, very similar to, or I can say exactly same to a C++ method. Only thing is that in C++, this access modifier you place like above the method signature, right? So which is not the case in Java. But you don't have to worry about it again. If I am only talking about the lead code programming, so you would be given this signature. But you might have to create, sometimes you want to create another method, right? So for that, like this would be handy. So what I would suggest for lead code is whenever you are creating another method, use private. Okay. Although this doesn't make any difference in terms of like success of your code, but I would suggest you to go with private. A private method is something which cannot be accessed outside the class, and whatever method you would be creating, you would be calling from the main solution method, right? So for example, if this is our method, if this is our solution code, then what we want to do is like we want to create our own private method somewhere in within this class, and then we might want to call it from here. Okay, let's take this example and try to understand the data type, the primitive type basically, right? So this example would go like create almost every primitive type of data, and what it is doing is like it's trying to calculate something. Okay, so what I'm trying to demonstrate here is like there is type conversion between data types, right? So you would understand, I would explain like how each type is getting converted. The rule is that the smaller data type is can convert into a lower data type. No, the rule is that the smaller data type can be converted into a larger data type. Okay, so here I'm creating like byte, which is 1 byte. Okay, byte of space, and then this char is 2 bytes. Short is again 2 bytes. Int is 4 bytes. Float is 8 bytes, I think, or 4 bytes. I am not sure, so let's leave it. Whatever float is, like double is the double of float. Okay, so if it is float is 4 bytes, double is 8. If float is 8 bytes, double is 16. And then I'm trying to calculate the result. So if you see here, I'm trying to multiply f and b, but f is float and b is byte. So how does this work? And in the next statement, like I is divided by c, so I is my integer, c is the character. So how does this work? Because they are like different data types, right? And the next one is like d times s. So d is a double value and s is short. So let's see like how everything works. So as I said, whenever like two we are operating with variables of two different data types, the smaller one is automatically converted into the larger one. Okay, so f and b, if you see, f is float and b is byte, right? So f is a larger data type, and these two are compatible data types, right? Because they both are kind of arithmetic. So whenever we are doing f times b, the result is a floating value. Okay, we'll see when like I'll be printing this as well, right? So we'll see that what the result is. And then coming back to like I divided by c, again the automatic typecasting would happen. I is integer and c is my character. So as you might be familiar, if you have experience with C or C++, that character internally is an integer. Okay, so I'm not going to explain that, but you can, for the sake of this discussion, it's just uh, helpful to understand that character is 2 bytes and integer is 4 bytes, and both of them are compatible. So the result would be converted into an integer, and yeah. So what happens to d? Like whatever is the ASCII value of d, that would be used here. Okay, and then we are, for the last one, we are multiplying d times s. D is my double and s is short. Okay, so double is a bigger data type. So again, by the same logic, this gets converted into double. Okay, and then I'm going to print first all of the intermediate results, and then we are going to print the result. Okay, which I have stored here in double. So let's see. Let's try to print. Let's comment out this one, and let's try to print the first line. So as you can see, this is our output here, 754.0. So this one, as you can see, like it got converted into float. This one is like integer, the second one, and then the last one got converted into double. Okay. Uh, so that's fine. Now what happens? Now we have three values here, right? Now we have three values. One is float, one is integer, and one is double. So what happens again? What would be the type of the result? Again, it would be converted into the largest data type, which is double. So that's why I have taken the result as double data type, and like if you are printing, we'll see like the result as a double. So let's see. So see this last line, result is 806.7, like which is a double value. Okay. So that's how the data type conversion happens. Let's move on. Let's move on to the next topic, which is loops. So again, if you talk about loops, we have same like while, for, okay, do while. These are all present in C++ and C. What we have new here is for each loop. Okay. Uh, so for each is a type of a loop which is used to cycle through a collection of values such as an array. Okay, because array is a collection of integer. So we can use for each loop to cycle through the values in an array, or we can use any other collection, like for example linked list. We have a linked list in Java, we can use for each to cycle through that, to iterate. But it iterates in a sequential fashion. Okay, and from begin to end. Okay. So let's see an example and try to understand. So let's take this example to understand the for each loop. Okay. So here I have created an array, and this is the syntax to create an array in Java. So we do like the data type, and then this subscript notation, and then the variable name. And then I have assigned it to few values. Okay. Uh, this is my for each loop. So the syntax goes like this. Uh, so what you will do is you will say like whatever is the type of the value, there is colon in between, and then to the left of the colon is whatever the type of value that collection contains. Okay, so for example, in this case, our array is integer, so it contains integer values. So this is the type of data. Okay, to the left of the for each loop. And then in the right, we have the collection that we want to iterate. So for example, in this case, it is ARR. And then it's not an index. So what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to print all the values. Okay, so this is the statement to print anything. Okay, on the screen. So system.out.print, and then just saying I, and then appending it with a space. Okay, so this is similar to how I would do it in printf. See this. So if I have to write a printf statement, I would say %d, and then I would give it a space, and then I would say I. Okay. So this is the similar statement for that. And in the last line, I'm just doing system.out.println. So how this is different is it will just print a new line. Okay. System.out.print won't go into the new line, so it would continue writing on the same line. Uh, so for each loop, again, you can see this is the main part, the for each loop. This is the syntax. So as you can see, it's different from like normal for. How it is different is like we don't have any index, right? We don't have an index here. we are directly able to access the values of the collection, okay, and work with it. So let me try to run it. See, as you can see, it's printing all the values 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, and so if you like, you must have noticed that everything else is same, like as a normal for loop or a if loop. Okay, we can add any statement here. So what I mean by that is, inside this for each, I can also write an if condition. Okay, and if is again similar to C++ or C anything. So I can say if I equals 4, then I would use again similar break. Okay, it will break. So let's try to run it and see. So this time only 2, 3, 4 got printed. Why? Because we used a break on when I was 4, so this got break, and break statement works similar to something in C or C++. It takes us out of the loop, and then the new line got printed. If you are confused about print and println, so this is not going to be used. We are not going to be using this in Leetcode, right? But you might be using this while debugging, like trying to print, debugging while trying to print. Okay. So if you're confused, like let's change this to println, and then let's see how this output changes. So now you can see like everything is printed on one line. Okay. Everything is printed on separate line uh, because println prints the new line as well. Let's move on to the next topic, which is like if else. Let's try to understand if else. Okay, so as I said, like we are using this if condition here, uh, but this is again this does not work. So the difference, as I said, it is like it works with Boolean values. Okay, so it won't work with integer as in the case of C++. So what I mean is, like if I just do if I then break, then this is an error. Okay, why? You can see it says that required type is Boolean, but we are providing an integer value. So this if condition, the condition has to be a Boolean in Java, and this is the equality. I'm comparing it with 4, so this converts this condition into Boolean. um, let's demo it with if else. Okay, so I would say let's try to see, like I want to print how many of them are even and how many of them are odd values. So whenever I have an even value, I want to print even, and whenever I encounter an odd value, I want to print odd. Okay, so how we would do that? I would say I contains the value, right? So I would say I, and then same thing, I mod 2 equals 0. If this is the case, this means the value is even. So I would say dot out dot, and I would print even. Okay, and then else I would just copy this and print odd. Okay, so if else works the same way, right, as in normal C++ programs. So there is no difference here. Let me try to run this one now. Even odd, even odd, even. You can see. So because first we got 2, this I was on 2. If you want to see this, you can also write I is even. Okay, I is odd. Okay, and this is the error because if you want to like join multiple strings in a system dot, like in println statements, like here you can concatenate multiple things with plus. And so for example, if I want to add anything here after is even, then I would just add it with this. Okay, and just printing this exclamation. Okay, same thing here. So that's how like you can concatenate multiple strings, and you can directly just say I. So if it would be a C++ program, like you have to specify in printf using format specifiers, which is not required here. Okay, so println is smart enough to understand that this has to be printed. Whatever this value, this has to be printed, so it converts it into string. Okay, so let's see. Now let's try to run it. So See this, 2 is even, 3 is odd, 4 is even, 5 is odd. So we missed a space. That's why like there's no space between when we are printing the odd values. Like they are totally, there's no space between the number and this string. Okay. So this is about if else. We have other like boolean checking conditions like switch case, which works very similar to what we have in C++, but I'm not going to go through that for now because you're not going to need that very much in Leetcode programming. But if you need, like, you can just refer to it because it is very similar and almost same as C++ switch case. Another thing to notice about this for each loop is that they are much faster than the traditional for or while loops. So you should try to use them as much as possible when you are coding in Java. Also talked about a little bit about the array creation, right? And we covered like how the array would be created. So if you see this, like this is the data type and then this array index, and I'm talking about one-dimensional array, right, for now. And then this is the name of the array. What if I want to like um, create new type, like yeah, so there is another keyword called as new. Okay, so how that is used, if I want to use that to create ARR2 new int. Okay, so this is how, and here you have to specify the size. So you see this, let's comment this one, and then I'm just creating this ARR with size 5 here. So this is how, if you want to use the new keyword to create the array. Okay, I'm sure like there's new keyword in C++ as well, but in Java it's a little bit different. Okay, so this is how you use new keyword to create new objects. So int ARR, and then I would just say new int 5. We would see more of this like in our later videos when we would go through creating linked list and those type like collection. We would go through collection framework, which is like similar to STL in C++. We'll learn about that later. But for now, this is how you create a new integer array of size 5. So you can put any number here. Okay. Okay. And then I have shown you like how you can traverse this array, right? And then you can use for each loop, or you can use for loop, whatever you prefer. Okay. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to take few programs and I would code it in front of you. They are Leetcode easy problems, and I would suggest like pause this video, go through that program and try to code it yourself, and then see it in the video. So let's do that. So let's start with this program. Running sum of one-dimensional array. What does it says? Given an array of nums, we define a running sum of an array as running sum I equals sum of num0 to nums of I. So if the index is, let's say, 4, then this would be sum from 0 to 4. That's what this says. Okay, and return the running sum of nums. So we have to return the running sum of nums. So what does this mean is, if you take this example, so the sum is like nums is 1, 2, 3, 4, and then it says that running sum to I is sum from 0th index to that number. Okay, so if I am creating, let's say I'm trying to store my result here, so for the first value it would be just 1, right? And then when I reached here, so it would be sum of num0 and num1, which is 1 plus 2 3. Okay, and then I go here, then 1 plus 2 plus 3 6, and then 6 plus 4 is 10. So that's what running sum means. That's what the answer. So how we would do that? So 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 let's use our concepts, whatever we learned. Let's use that. So we can use the same array to, okay, let's do it in the same array. Okay, let's use a for loop. Okay, let's for int I equals 1, I less than dot, and nums dot length is the property which we would use to get the length of an array. Okay, and it would be similar. What we would do is we would say nums of I equals nums of I plus nums of I minus 1. Okay, and then what we're going to do is return nums. So let's see, let's try to run this. Okay, so we have an error. Why? Because this return nums is not placed where it should be. So it should be a part of method, right? Like normal to any other C++. A method should be returning method should be returning values, not the class. So I made that mistake, but I fixed it now. So it works, and you can see like all of the test cases are passing. So let's try to submit this. Okay, so it passed. But let's go back and try to improve this. What we can do, how we can improve it. Uh, or I would not say improving, but let's try to use our concepts. What if like I want to store the sum in a new array, right? So we have to create another array, right? So how you would create a new array? So same thing, right? Int, and then I would call it result. And then what would be the size of this one? So the size would be same as of the nums, right? So nums dot, and how we access the size, nums dot length. We just learned this property, right? So, and then what we would do now is, so for the 0th index, we would say result of 0 to be equal to nums of 0. So I'm just demonstrating you like how you can use our concept, like how we can create the array here and then do the same things. Okay. Int I equal to 1, and then what I'm going to do is result of I equals nums of I plus result of I minus 1. If you don't understand the logic, like pause and try to like understand it, dry run it on some example and try to see. Okay, let's see. So we made a mistake. We have to return result now, right? Okay, let's run it. So as you can see, all the test cases are passing. You can submit it and you can see this works. All right, let's move on to our next problem. And this is to show you, yeah, so this is a very basic problem. And it says that we are given a non-negative floating point number rounded to do 2 decimal places in a variable called Celsius. You can see here, this is our argument. And we have to return an array of this temperature converted to Kelvin and Fahrenheit, right? So, and we are also given the formula. Celsius plus this, and Fahrenheit is Celsius into 1.8 plus 32, right? So how we would do it, and then there are some examples. So this is very straightforward, right? So we are passed a double value, we just have to convert it into two values and return, okay? And we cannot return multiple values with two, like multiple return statements other than, so we have to create a double array, and which is the return type here. So let's do this. Let's first create the double array. Okay, so how we would do it? Same thing, like previously we saw how we created integer array, right? We're going to do to use the same syntax. So what we are doing is double and then this array notation and then the variable name, and then I'm going to say new double, and then what would be the size? This time it will be 2. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is, so first we have to convert it into Kelvin. Okay, so let's do this. So I'm going to do result of 0 equals, so what is the formula? Celsius plus 273.15. Okay, so Celsius plus 273.15. Very, very straightforward question, right? And then, and this is how we are like accessing the individual indexes in array, right? Same as what we do in C++ or C. So Celsius into 10, I'm just copying it from here. Okay. Okay. And then I'm going to return the result, and this should work. Let's see. Let's try to run this. Okay, so both the test cases are passing. Let's submit it. This is very straightforward question. Just wanted to show the theory that we learned, that how can we create a double array here. Like we created integer array previously, and now it's a double. Nothing new other than that. Let's move on to the next question. So what does this says there is a programming language with only 4 operations and one variable x. Okay, plus plus x and x plus plus increments the value of the variable x by 1, and this minus minus x and x minus minus decrements the value of the variable x by 1. Initially the value of x is 0, and we have to return whatever would be the value of x after these series of operations. So this is a little bit different, right? What do we have here is string array. So string is another data type in Java. It's not a primitive data type like int, char, float, okay, but it's provided by the Java library, okay. So this is a class. String is a class which is already provided by Java and which we have to use. So let's see how we will use it. Okay, it's a collection of characters only, but it's a different class here in Java. So let's see how we would do that to solve this question using string. Okay, so operations is a string array. Okay, what does this mean is like how this would be stored. So you can think of it like this. So this is a normal array, okay, and then at each position there is a string value. A string is a collection of characters. Okay, so what happens, like in our case the strings are like plus plus x. In this, if I'm talking about the question, it's minus minus x, plus x, things like that. So you can see like it's like this, something like this is stored here. Okay, and then something like this, plus x. Okay, and then x plus plus, and then minus minus x, for example. So you can think of a string array like this. So this is our array which is being passed. This is the operations array which is being passed as an argument, and then so this array of size 4, and each index contains a string which is a collection of characters. Okay, so let's see so what does this mean? This means is operation 0 is a string. If I do operation 0, this would print me like this would give me minus minus x. Okay, so if I'm trying to, let's say, print this one, this would print minus minus x. It's a collection of characters. So let's see now how we can manipulate this string array to find the answer. And it says that there is a variable which starts with 0. So let's take that variable. So it is integer, right? So int x equals 0. Okay, and now so first, like, let's use a normal for loop. For int I equals 0, I less than, okay, then plus plus I, right? And what we have to do, we have to check, right? What is the string? If it's plus plus x or x plus plus, then we have to increment it by 1, x by 1. If it's otherwise, we have to decrement it by 1. And only, like, we have only these 4 possibilities, right? Plus plus x, x plus plus, or minus minus x, or x minus minus. So let's see how we'll do it. So we'll just write a condition. If, let's see, plus plus x dot, okay, let's see, and I'm using a method equals, okay, or copy this one, Okay, then what we have to do? We have to do plus plus x, or x is equal to x plus 1. This is increment pre-increment operator, which is same as what we have in C++. Okay. Else what we have to do? Minus minus x. Let's see if this works. And then this loop will end, and then I have to return x here. So looks good. Let's see now if this works. Right? So as you can see, all the test cases are passing here. But let's see what is the smallest size of the array. Okay, so it's 1, so it means like we won't be getting empty operations array. So that's fine. So let's try to submit this. Okay, so that got accepted. So this worked. So here I'm using this equals method because I want to compare uh, plus plus x with whatever this first, whatever we have in operations of I. Okay, plus plus x or x plus plus. Uh, so I would recommend like using this method whenever you are doing string comparison. There is little bit of difference between like comparing it using equals and comparing it with like equal this sign. Okay, so I would recommend using equals whenever you are doing string comparison. So I won't go into detail of what is the difference, but maybe in some other video. But for now, just remember that we should use this equals. And then what we are doing is we are just incrementing if the condition is true, and then in the x we are decrementing. How we can improve this? Like we learned about for each loop, right? So let's see how we can use for each loop. So what is our collection here? What is our collection here? I said like for each can be used to iterate through a collection of values, right? So what is our collection? String array. So array of strings, right? So what is each type of data? What is the type of data here in the array? String, right? So how I would write, if you can you can go back to the video and refer to the syntax, but it would be like this. Okay, string str in and you can read this as in. So for string, for each string str in operations, if xx plus x, now we don't have to index it, right? We can just say str. Here again str, right? Plus plus x else minus. Okay, so this should work as well. All right, let's try to submit this, which worked. Okay. All right, let's move on to next question. Okay, so this is again another easy question. Leetcode is easy. Given an integer array nums of length n, you want to create an array of answer of length 2n, where answer of I equals num I and answer of I plus n equals num I for 0 to less than. So question is quite clear. We are given an integer array nums, and then we have to return an array answer which is of length 2n. Okay, and then this is how we have to fill this. Like answer of I would be answer nums of I, and then answer of I plus 1 would be equal to nums of I. Okay, so this is pretty straightforward. So again, how will you create this answer array? Answer equals new int. Okay, this is our syntax, and here we have to fill in with the size of the array, right? So what will be the size? This is twice the length of nums, right? So 2 times nums dot length. Okay, that's how you create. And then what you would do? I'm using a for loop. Okay, answer of I equals nums of I, and then in the same iteration I'm going to add, okay, and then I'm going to return. Okay. Let's see, let's try to run this. Okay, so there is no n, which is understandable because we have not created, right? So what is n? What n is basically the length of this num, right? So or either we can do like this, I plus nums dot length each time, or there's another way where we can just extract this nums dot length into a variable. Okay, but let's see. Okay, so it worked. Let me try to submit it. Okay, so this is working fine. What we can do is, like, if we want, since we are using nums dot length at multiple places, what I would do is I would create a variable. Okay, and then I would use it here and here and then here. Let's run it. Submit it. So this would work. Okay. So that's all for this video. I am sure you must have learned about uh, like few Java concepts. So what to do next? Like what happens after this? So I would recommend you start coding in Java, like pick some easy questions and then try solving them. But don't pick like the medium or the hard ones. Begin with easy problems first. Okay, or you can, if you have previously done Leetcode, then you can pick whatever questions you have already solved, the easy ones. Okay. Whenever you forget about a syntax, just Google it or refer to this video or create a note and keep it handy. Okay. Uh, Next, like we are going to continue on this. Next, we are going to see how to create 2D arrays, how to use collections framework. Collections framework is like Java library similar to STL, uh, which contains like data structures for linked list, tags, queues, okay, everything, map, sets, and we'll see how we can use them. We'll see example of like how to traverse and then access each element, push, add element to a collection, remove element from a collection, things like that. We'll also see how to sort any collection in Java using the library method provided to us. Also, how we can do binary search, things like that, using the collections framework. Okay, so that's all for this video. I think like this must be helpful. So let me know in the comments, and thank you so much for watching.